Hi, today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the very basics of turning a bowl. Today I'm going to be rough turning this one out of silver maple. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, I'm roughing in this really out of round piece of wood. This is going to be our bowl, and as you can see, because it's so terribly out of round, I can't get a smooth cut. If you see what happens, the tool is shaking this way, back and forth. So to solve this, I hold my bowl gouge level so that the tool rest will soak up a lot of the force from the wood. Now you may be wondering if by raising the handle of the tool so that it's level, you're no longer riding the bevel, or the bevel is not making full contact with the wood while you're cutting. Now, if you were just to raise the handle and go head in, no, your bevel's not going to ride. You don't want to do that, but by putting it this way, I'm still riding the bevel and I'm still getting a clean cut because the bevel is following the wood just in a different direction. Now, there's one thing that I'm going to be covering a lot in this video that I will constantly nag you guys to do, and that is using your body while you're making your cuts instead of your hands. When you're using your bowl gouge or any tool, it doesn't have to be a bowl turning tool, it can be any spindle turning tool, you don't want to be using your hands to do all the cutting. I always tuck the tool into my body and use my body's weight and force to guide the tool. This not only allows you to make very accurate and precise cuts, but it also really steadies your tool and it'll make cutting with the bowl gouge or any tool a lot easier. Now, if you notice, the tool is kind of held in my arm a funny way. I'm not holding it in the traditional fashion. I'm pointing my finger this way, and I have it tucked underneath my forearm, so if I were to get a catch, it would catch on my forearm and it wouldn't snap up. You can see how I'm just leaning and pulling the bowl gouge with me as I'm making these cuts. Now, another rule of thumb that will make cutting your bowl a lot easier is the uphill-downhill rule. Now, this particular piece of wood has grain orientation that's running this way across the blank, but other pieces of wood, which we call end grain vessels or end grain pieces, will have the grain orientation going this way parallel to the bed of your lathe. Now, you cut in two different directions for each different type of bowl. Now, because my grain orientation is going this way, I'm starting my cut at what will be the tenon or just your live center, and I'm pulling it out to what will be the lip of the bowl. That's always how I shape my bowls, is from the live center out to the headstock. Now, if you do not shape your bowls like that, just still remember, you are starting at the smallest point of your bowl, the foot, and you're bringing it out to the lip when your grain orientation is running this way like this. For end grain pieces, everything is in reverse. You're starting your cut at the lip of the bowl and working your way down to the foot. The uphill-downhill cutting rule also applies when you're working on the inside of a bowl. On a piece like this where the grain orientation is going this way, I'm going to start my cut on the inside of a bowl at the lip and bring it into the center. Now, it's the complete opposite on an end grain bowl. I'm starting in the center and working my way out towards the lip. We follow these uphill-downhill cutting rules because it allows you to cut with the grain at all times. You get better curly shavings coming off there, cleaner cuts, and you get a much better finish on your wood. Now, I always start turning my bowls by roughing in and trimming up just the back face that the foot is on first, just so I can crank up my speed and get it going a little bit faster without the lathe shaking. Once this face is flattened off, I'll start to bring my curve around this way. Now, I know some guys will get the whole thing to a perfect cylinder before they even start working on their curve, but I don't like doing this because if I come in the wood head-on from this way, I'm hitting in alternating grain from end grain to side grain, and it's a little tricky to hold the tool steady while doing that, and it's kind of hard to get a nice clean cut. So instead what I'll do is I'll cut through this space and push that back. That way I'm only cutting through side grain. Now as you can see, I've just finished shaping off the outside and I have it put into my chuck with the tailstock just to support it. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about another rule of bowl turning, which is very important, and it pretty much only applies to roughing in green bowls and letting them dry. That style of bowl turning rather than all in one shot, one stage bowl turning. The rule is the 10% wall thickness rule. Now, when the moisture leaves the green bowl, it's going to twist and warp around the bowl, and that's why we leave the walls of the bowl thick when we rough turn it, so that we still have enough clearance and play to turn it back into round once we finish turning it. But the question is, just how thick do you leave the walls, and how thin can you get away leaving the walls with? So the 10% rule is 10% of the bowl's diameter, which in my case is 13.5 inches, will be your wall thickness. So 10% of 13.5 inches is 1.35 inches. So that's pretty close to 1 3/8 inches of wall thickness. So that will be my final wall thickness on this bowl. So now comes a very important part of roughing in the inside of a bowl, and that is the technique used to do so. Now, if we just come in, what's going to happen is we're going to get carried back, and it's going to zip across the piece of wood, and it might scare you a little bit. So what we're going to do to solve that is we're just going to really close off the tool and approach the bowl very carefully, and we're just going to cut in a groove. And that groove is now something for the tool to back up against and keep it from zipping across the rest of the wood. So, once we get our groove cut, I'm just going to turn the flute open a little bit. And as you can see, I'm going to slowly pull the handle towards me, making cylindrical shapes and passes inside the bowl. So again, just start your groove.
Now it got really fun. Now I was questioning whether or not I should even put this in the video, but because I do want to show my mistakes and also what could happen while bowl turning, I decided to keep it in. Because my chuck jaws cannot open up very large, I couldn't really put a super big tenon on this like I would have liked to on a bowl this size. So because the tenon was a weak spot, the bowl broke off from it and went spinning off the lathe. After that, I screwed a faceplate onto the bowl, put it back onto the lathe, and re-trued it up since it was off-center a little bit, and continued working on the inside. I need a new chuck. Preferably the Bulldog 5.5 inch chuck, in case any of you guys want to buy me a Christmas present.
Close look at the motion that I'm using to work on the inside of this bowl. It's almost like the bowl gouge is on a pivot point, and the pivot point would be the tool rest. Okay, this cut is neither a push cut or a pull cut. It's kind of a mix of both because this hand is pushing in and this hand is pulling, so I don't really know what you would call it. But I'm pivoting on the tool rest, so I'm going to engage the cutting edge, and then I'm going to slowly pull the tool handle toward me to give it a nice spherical cut that will slowly work my way into the inside of the bowl. Now, how a lot of guys will cut out the inside of a bowl is just by holding this on their tool rest and just working their way in like this. Now, this isn't good for a couple reasons. One, you're using your hands and just kind of working your way through it, kind of just hacking your way through the inside of a bowl. And two, it takes a lot of force up to constantly be pushing into the inside of a bowl. So this pivoting point kind of a cut will really save you a lot of your energy, because the tool rest is again taking up a lot of the force from the wood hitting against your gouge. And all you have to do is just pull this handle in towards you. It's a very easy cut to make. Now, while you're working on the inside of a bowl, it's important to ensure that your walls are perfectly even before you go ahead and cut out the entire inside. Now, I've been checking along as I've went, just working every inch or so down, trying to make a section at a time be a perfectly even wall thickness instead of just trying to measure the whole wall at once. But I'm just going to go ahead and check up on the bottom here. And as you can see, that's a nice even wall thickness all the way down. Now to dry your rough turn bowl, I have tried many different methods, just to name a few: plastic bags, completely wrapping your bowl in newspapers. I've tried brown paper bags packed with shavings, without shavings. I've tried just about everything. And for the past year, I've been using this product right here. This is a product called Anchor Seal, and this is for sealing up the end grains of a bowl to keep it from cracking. My club sells Anchor Seal from a huge barrel with a pump on it, and they sell it by the half gallon or gallon. I only paid $5 for this half gallon of Anchor Seal, so that's a pretty good deal if you ask me. And this stuff gets wiped onto the end grain of my rough turn bowls. I also use this stuff to put onto the end grain of the slabs of wood before I rough turn them. And this prevents cracking and checking. Now believe me, I know just how tempting it is to apply this stuff while the lathe is on so you can just wipe it on while it's spinning. But don't do it, because you're going to seal up everything on the bowl instead of just the end grain. And that way, the bowl's going to take forever to dry, because moisture can't really get through this stuff. So it's going to take a really, really long time to dry because everything is sealed up. So I leave the side grain of all my bowls untouched, and moisture can get out through that. Alright guys, and that wraps up this video. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Just a note, once this end grain sealer will dry, I take it off the faceplate and I set it down on a shelf along with all my other rough turn bowls for at least 6 months. Anywhere from 6 months to a year to 2 years, I will let a bowl dry. And once it's dry, I'll go ahead and finish turning. And that is it, guys. So again, thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel for new wood turning videos every single Friday, and I will see you guys next week.